Hey, we were just talking about how there's cultural differences in forgiveness. Again, that certain cultures may see forgiveness as an interpersonal process, and others may see it as an intrapersonal process. Specifically, collectivistic nations like Japan or China, because there's certain cultural norms for social harmony. This might actually the culture might promote forgiveness even in situations where we would be more, or there would be a lower tendency to forgive when you're growing up in a more Western-oriented group. How can we actually cultivate forgiveness in our own lives? The book talks a lot about this. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly, but these are really the sort of great 5 steps. Obviously you have to recall the hurt sort of in this most objective way, try and de-emotionalize the hurt, empathize with the transgressor, which was obviously very difficult to try and understand sort of their feelings. Altruistically give the gift of forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't necessarily something that's earned, it's something that's given. Verbally commit to forgive the person, and then hold on to forgiveness for each other. Okay, I'm going to spend most of the rest of this second part of this lecture really looking at gratitude. This is a great slide. I hope you read all these wonderful quotes. So what really links gratitude and altruism is that what they both have in common is this sort of necessary condition to empathize with others. That the ability to empathize with others is a necessary condition for both altruism and gratitude, and that's really what sort of links these two emotional behavioral experiences. So gratitude, which is really the feeling of appreciation and gratefulness and graciousness that accompanies a sort of a person or a situation that's helping you, is different from altruism, which is again extending sort of benevolent behaviors or just helping a person out. When we think about gratitude, we can think about one of the situations where we're most likely to actually experience gratitude. And so obviously gratitude is most likely experienced when others act in a way that is really costly to them. It's valuable to the recipient or to the person that's receiving the grateful act, and it's intentionally rendered, right? So if I do something that's not very difficult, it's not very valuable, or it was by accident, you may feel a little bit of gratitude in those situations, but those are obviously situations in where gratitude is less likely to be experienced. One of the situations that would predict when the highest amount of gratitude is experienced is obviously when the event is of really large magnitude, and so when the person who's actually engaging in the behavior actually does something very difficult. Again, that's sort of the costly side of that. When the giving person does something that's unexpected, when it's different than when it is expected, those are situations that are really likely to produce these sort of feelings of gratitude. And so one of the things that I think is really important is to understand sort of this benefit finding, which is that we, at least from a situational perspective, gratitude might also be present really if we sort of look at the positive aspects of sort of our negative experiences, right? So if I were to talk about this really difficult time in my life, but being grateful for that difficult time because it taught me some sort of valuable lesson, that would be benefit finding, and that would be a sort of situation in which we're able to experience a lot of gratitude. So we might be able to think about like a time when you're looking at sort of the past and the types of things that you've done in sort of a more positive light, and the gratitude you might experience from that. There's a tremendous amount of research that actually shows that gratitude is closely linked with well-being. I could have made 20 slides that shows that gratitude is related with as many well-being constructs as you can probably imagine. So grateful people have more positive emotional functioning, lower dysfunction, they have better relationships with their friends, they're less likely to get angry or feel hostility or depression, they're much more likely to experience positive emotions, they're open with their feelings. It's just the list goes sort of on and on and on. I think one of the important parts of gratitude is the strong social relationships that it actually produces. And so there's this incredible social aspect of gratitude. And if you look at that, we see that individuals who are grateful have emotional warmth, are gregarious, are trusting, are altruistic, are tender-minded, have just basically positive social functioning in general. And gratitude can really draw our sort of perception to anything that really is appreciative in the world. Again, much like what we've been talking about throughout this book, there's a tremendous amount of variation in gratitude. So specifically, and we didn't get a great chance to talk about this sort of difference between religiosity and spirituality in the last chapter. Hopefully you were able to read a lot about that. But one of the factors that positively is correlated with just general feelings of gratitude is the degree to which you're religious, so the degree to which you sort of have a religious tradition. So religiousness is positively related with gratitude, specifically gratitude towards God, if you come from sort of a Protestant background. And the interaction between your sort of religious commitment and your religious gratitude predicts this emotional well-being. So having both those things in common really produces a lot of emotional well-being. Most of the well-being that we talked about in the previous slide. Gratitude also really varies in the way that it's expressed, and so phrases like "thank you" produce really positive emotions in the United States. And if you remember, we had some cultural differences in the culture counts studies back in chapter 3, and we saw that Koreans didn't experience a lot of gratitude when they went through gratitude interventions, and probably that's because saying thank you doesn't produce as positive reactions, whereas sort of there's a preference for sort of apology phrases that are really designed to save face. And so what you can really see is just its verbal manifestation has these really quite large differences across cultures. I want to talk about really three of the most common ways that gratitude has tried to be induced, and some of the really interesting differences there. And so one of them is just contemplation. Contemplation as a gratitude intervention, which is less likely to be used, mostly because there's no behavioral manifestation of it. So you just ask participants to reflect upon situations in which you receive some sort of benefit, and you sort of contemplate that. Because there's, again, not a behavioral expression like a journal or a letter or a meditation, they're generally a little bit less potent. Their effects don't last quite as long, and probably for that reason, there are just not quite as many studies on gratitude contemplation. Probably the most likely study that you're going to read if you're talking about a gratitude intervention is gratitude journaling. Bob Emmons and his colleagues have done tons of studies like this. Basically every night or once a week you write several things that you're really grateful for. Most of this came from looking at characteristics of individuals who already were gratitude journals, that they were enthusiastic, that they were alert, that they were determined. And what you basically find is that participants report just a host of benefits from gratitude journaling. So people who've done gratitude journaling have found to exercise more, to be more optimistic about the upcoming week, just to feel better about their life. Though Froh and his colleagues actually showed that, especially with adolescents, that gratitude interventions were really particularly effective for individuals who were low in positive affect. Gratitude letters can be very, very, and it's one of the assignments for this class, very, very potent. You write a letter to someone thanking them, and then one of two things: you either actually don't distribute the letter, or you just discard it. They're very, very powerful, but they're very labor intensive, and most of the benefits are gone after 1 month. So if you really wanted to get your most bang for your buck, you'd write like a gratitude letter every single month. And then the last one, which actually gratitude meditation, which really encourages you to ask different types of questions about sort of what you've received and what you've given, and what really troubles and difficulties you caused other people, brings us sort of into this awareness and sort of learns to appreciate are blessings, and is actually has quite a bit of benefits in various different types of cultures. So hopefully you'll pick one of these different types of gratitude interventions and try them out.